Well, hello. Thank you for joining me again on Schooling Discoveries. Okay, how about you introduce yourself and let people know who you are and what you do.
My name is Tamara Kidd and I'm a home educating parent, and I help people with anything to do with education with their children through my business, Tutor Your Own Child.
And when did you start that?
The business I started was in 2007, but the practice of helping parents with their children's education was about 97, 98, when I was still doing my degree in teaching, primary teaching.
This is not the first time we've caught up, and it's getting to the end of the year now. So I wanted to sort of catch up with you again, try and summarise some things around the style of education and learning that you offer through Tutor Your Own Child, and the things that you advocate for in education. So if you'd just like to share just to what you put your focuses into, that'd be great.
I put my focus into helping parents reconnect with their children. So rather than thinking about a particular pedagogy, which is a particular type of approach to learning that teachers have, that's not the place I'm coming from. All good learning comes from connection. And what parents need to do first is to reconnect with their children, and I help them do that. I do help people jump through the hoop of registration for homeschooling so they can get on with their life, pretty much. I'm a big supporter of parents being empowered so that they can help their children. But the most important, most empowering part really is about the child, and for them to feel like their parent is really listening to them. So I help children be listened to, and I do that through their parents.
That's fantastic. I need more help with that.
Okay.
Definitely. Thank you. And what about the history and culture of the classroom? So we were speaking earlier about some things that I just wanted to bring in the beginning of our catch up to offer some connections between what we know in the classroom today through historical measures that sort of are still very much fluent in how we think learning has to be. And
Yeah. I think one of the key things is that we've all been through school ourselves, and usually our parents have as well. So we've got this, it's almost like it's tradition to think this way about education. It's what we're used to. It's what our families are used to. We're encouraged to think this way. And that way is that formal education is the way that we learn. And that's historically not accurate. It's a fairly modern construct, this whole school movement. And there were parents protesting in the streets against the compulsory schooling of children when it initially came through, because these children were getting taken out of families, off farms, out of family situations where children had a place in the family, working with the family, to put them into schools. And the emphasis behind the decisions to put children into schools were a top-down government approach. And it was, when you look at the history of education and you see all of the different actors, they're called, in this situation, there's the church is a big one, government, the army as well, different armed forces, trying to encourage specifically boys as well to become part of, to get your schooling, compulsive schooling, and not question authority from the age of 7 is a really successful way of recruiting soldiers, because the people coming into the army already, this is what they've learnt from young age. And for those children that don't end up on the firing line, literally end up in the factory lines, and girls as well. And also the education around girls really is around their ability to work before they have children. Once you're married or once you've had children, you're not meant to work. Only the poor work if you're a female. So there's a lot of cultural constructs around forcing people into these school situations that is part of the history of us sending our children to the local public school. So there's a background to it, and it may not be as strict as it used to be. There may not be the cane anymore. There might not be corporal punishment. But the actual structure of how schools are run is still essentially the same. And in comparative and international education theories and research, it's called structural violence. And it's where the structure of the place has a violence or a negative effect on the people within it. So if you look at the two dichotomies of, there's either violence or support, there's either violence or nurturing. So things either destroy culture or they support culture. When a new school goes into an area, hopefully you want to support the culture of the place you're moving into, so you don't, eliminate cultural sensitivities and things. You still take those into considerations. There's a lot of colonization has gone along with schooling as well. You move a church into a local area, it's happened in Australia, and you start a school and you take those children away from the families and put them in the schooling environment. A lot of sending children away to boarding schools and things like this. So you have to take that into context when you're thinking about what is it to learn. And that stuff doesn't really have anything to do with learning. It has to do with control. So what is it to remove all of that structure and come down to the base essence of what is it to learn? And it's wanting to know the answer. And the person who needs to have that, impulse is the learner, not the teacher. So when you start home educating, you're not coming to it as a teacher. You're not coming to it with, I've got a bag full of, information that I'm going to put onto this child, or this child will learn from me, which takes a lot of pressure off you as well. It means you don't have to have everything worked out. What you're really doing is meeting the child where they're at, listening to them and helping them learn. And the best classroom, the best curriculum is the real world. So if you help your child learn from the real world, about the real world, you're getting the most up-to-date, accurate information about the world. As soon as you write things down in a book and get it published, it's a couple of years old. So realistically, if you've got internet access and you've got an ability, it doesn't even matter with how grounded we've been lately. Even if you can't go out into the world and travel, you do it from your own house, you still have access to the world in real time that you can't replicate through a curriculum or through a book or anything like that. But you need to have that connection and conversation going on with the children so that you can be there as their guide, which is why I call my business Tutor Your Own Child rather than Teach Your Own Child, because you come underneath as a tutor and ideally you want to be redundant. You want to make sure that, the children are learning as much as they can on their own, so that when they don't need you anymore, they don't use you anymore, and they're free to learn.
Self-sufficient.
Yes.